Hey guys, it's Mike here. In the Buu Saga of Dragon Ball Z, we were introduced to Babidi, the evil wizard or warlock who was introduced to us near the start of the arc. A being that was powerful in terms of magic, who was able to make really powerful warriors fall under his spell through the utilization of the Majin mark, which would be able to mind control and really spirit and soul control anyone that fell under its grasp, and at the very same time would boost their power to significant levels. However, how exactly does this Majin boost work? And what does the Dragon Ball manga say about it? Well, let's get into that as we're going to be exploring this in depth, showing in-universe evidence, and we'll be breaking that down. But before we begin, if you're new to the channel and you like this content, consider subscribing and enabling notifications so you can stay up to date with all of my future videos. Additionally, if you like this content, leave a like, leave your own thoughts down below in the comments, and share this video out so it could be seen by even more people, and in turn, I can continue to make even more content like this. But let's get into the video. So we were initially introduced to the Majin mark and Majin boost all the way back during the tournament at the start of the Buu Saga, in which we saw Spopovich go up against Videl during this initial fight. Now, this of course was the fight between Spopovich, who had been defeated by Mr. Satan the previous tournament, against his daughter, and thus as a result he wanted to get revenge upon Mr. Satan and take it out on Videl. As we see right here, Spopovich was actually eliminated in the very first round by Mr. Satan, showing that he wasn't really much to speak of at the time. Mr. Satan, of course, is an accomplished martial artist, winning the title of Mr. Satan in the first place. However, the fact is that beyond this, we end up seeing that he trained for 7 years and also encountered Babidi, who brought out the evil within his soul, or at least exploited it, and gave him the Majin mark. Even they say right here that he's basically unrecognizable compared to what he was before, and we see even more of this on display as the fight goes along. Because during the fight, Spopovich takes an obscene amount of damage from Videl, continue to take more and more damage, and still getting up every single time, which is shown even more in the anime. And as we see, everyone keeps thinking that Videl is about to win. However, Goku and the others are shocked when he keeps getting back up, because they know that this is abnormal, that no one should be able to take this amount of damage and continue to get back up time after time after time, and seemingly be even more powerful every single time as a result. Even Goku says there's something weird about him, she'd better forfeit. And we end up seeing this proven even more. Because remember, this is Videl, who was trained by Gohan before this tournament. She isn't just some normal martial artist who is just exceptionally skilled. She learned how to use chi and even how to fly, as we could see right here. And so she ends up using these abilities during her fight against Spopovich. And as Goku is saying right here, might have been better if she had fallen. Something's wrong about him. He's way too unfazed for the damage he's taken, and I don't feel any chi from him at all. Because Spopovich at this point isn't using chi, but rather is using his power given to him by Babidi, which is the dark magic within him. Eventually, Spopovich does his greatest feat of all when he's attacked by Videl, who puts in a lot of extra strength and actually spins his head around, breaking his neck in the process. In the anime, he falls down before getting up, but in the manga, he immediately spins it and snaps it back around, right back into place, and just cracks his neck in order to make it work for him. At this point, he starts to really brutalize Videl in what ends up being perhaps the most brutal one-sided beatdown we see in the franchise. Well, at least one of them, because we definitely see some really brutal ones even before this. But nonetheless, Videl is basically rendered helpless. She gets her teeth kneed out of her, and Spopovich is vastly beyond her in terms of what he's really able to do here, despite the fact that before he was really nothing. And that goes to show you the strength of the Majin boost. More of this is explained to everyone after this point, when everyone is flying off with the Supreme Kai, where he starts to explain exactly what Babidi is capable of, where he says that they need to defeat him, and of course Goku asks, is he tough? Supreme Kai says, not physically, but he uses magic. His father Bibidi was the same. Wait a second, Bibidi, Babidi, Buu, Mother of God. But Supreme Kai also goes on to say that warlocks take advantage of the evil within people and take control of them, as he did with Spopovich and Yamu. Let's just hope he doesn't have anyone formidable on his side. However, of course, he definitely would have a very formidable opponent on his side, which would end up being Deborah, as I'll get into soon. And Shin elaborates on this, saying that don't let his physical weakness fool you. After all, his magic turned even Dabra to his side, where they're observing Bobby first off. His magic can overpower such a foe as that, says Piccolo. No, says Kibito. He manipulates the evil and greed already lurking in one's soul. Dabra is an ideal candidate. That's what makes Bobby's magic so dangerous. So many powerful beings under his sway. That's why you can't have any evil in your souls if you're going to fight him. Of course, that was certainly the case for Vegeta. But nonetheless, as we see, first off, we get to see them fight against Pui Pui, who is somebody who was powered up by the Majin boost. And every single character that we actually witness, not just Pui Pui, but also Yakan and Deborah, were all powered up by this boost. It's not just that they were using their normal latent power, but rather, or their normal power that was on the surface, but rather Babidi took them even further beyond, as I'll explain soon. And, you know, Pui Pui, we count him as pathetic nowadays because of how easily base Vegeta was able to beat him, and that he was bragging about, oh, 10 times gravity, I grew up on this planet, and Vegeta easily obliterates him in just his base form, but he was even weaker before that. Same thing with Yakan, who was already a fearsome warrior, but you have to wonder if he would have actually done as well against Goku in Goku's base form if he wasn't already the Majin. Maybe the Majin boost made him significantly stronger than he was to begin with. Same thing with Deborah. In the anime, we see Deborah meditating and everything before his fight against Gohan. We learn that Deborah is equivalent to, or really even stronger than, Cell from the previous arc, which I've explained in videos. You could see in the top right corner was a super perfect Cell, because it would only make sense from all the context clues that that's what they're referring to. But again, just how much more powerful is Majin Deborah comparative to the original Deborah? Perhaps he was more akin to Perfect Cell before Majin, which then in turn made him stronger than Super Perfect. That's up in the air as well. But how exactly does this really work? Well, we get to see this firsthand when Babidi takes over Vegeta's mind and gives him the Majin mark and Majin boost as a result, where we see him invading Vegeta's mind. And then what ends up happening when he's doing this, Vegeta is trying to resist at first, it seems like, according to everyone else in the room, but that's not really the case, because he purposely allowed himself to fall under the spell, as I'll get into even more. During this, when all this is happening, Babidi says, "He, you're mine. Now to bring out your latent powers." And then we see Babidi powers Vegeta up right here as he gets the Majin boost, and in turn we end up seeing that he ends up being able to match up to Super Saiyan 2 Goku exactly with his new power, to where, as Goku says right here, "Unbelievable, I thought I trained so hard in the afterlife, but we're dead even. You must have trained harder than I did." And Vegeta responds, "No, I thought I did, but you're more gifted than me. I could never make up the difference between us. I finally saw this when you fought Babidi's monster. It was a huge blow. That's why I made up my mind." So in terms of Vegeta getting this power boost, is this some kind of multiplier, or is it something else? Well, when we go back and look at what Babidi says right here, what exactly does he say when he's describing this Majin boost? He says, "Now to bring out your latent powers." So what does that mean? Well, this sounds very similar to something else we saw earlier on in the story, which is when Krillin went to go see the Grand Elder, Saichoro, or Guru, during the Namek section of the Frieza arc, really, the entire Frieza arc, I guess you could say. And what does he say right here? That he says, "By the way, you have exceptional strength for an Earthling. In fact, you're wasting inner strength that still lies asleep. I can awaken it for you." Huh? Inner strength, says Krillin? And then he says right here, "No way, if I had more power, I'd know about it. I've trained so much. In fact, I think I'm already past my limitations." And what happens? Krillin gets powered up, and You could see right here that he's so utterly taken aback by the amount of power he has, as that he starts to yell about it, to say how awesome it is, and say that he basically feels like he's being reborn, and at the same time asked if they could do this to Gohan, as we go on to see later on. So this is an example of taking someone's latent powers and making it to where it increases past what they currently have, which again mirrors what we hear from Babidi. Then we also hear a very similar thing later on too. When Gohan had broken the Z-Sword, the Elder Supreme Kai is awakened. And what does he say right here? He said, "I'm the Lord of Lords from 15 generations ago. Long ago, a long time ago, there was a terrible bad guy, almost as terrible as Buu. And he sealed me away in that sword. He was scared of me, that's why." He goes on to elaborate after Goku tests him out and blasts him right in the face. He says right here, "Dummy, he wasn't afraid of my strength. He was afraid of my special power." And after some coaxing, he explains to Goku that, "My psychic powers allow me to draw out hidden abilities far beyond the normal limits of even the most skilled fighters." Ever heard anything like that? And Goku responds, every day. And then the Elder Supreme Kai says, "I can go beyond the normal limits. Nobody else can do that." And what do we end up seeing? He ends up doing this to Gohan. Gohan powers up to such a significant degree with his latent potential being drawn out past its limits that he's able to far surpass everyone else at the time, including even Goku, who you could see is utterly stunned by how insane the power of Gohan is on display right here, where he explains that yes, it is incredible, even though you haven't even trained, and he didn't know that such a thing was even possible. Well, he says that you didn't even become a Super Saiyan. He did train a little bit before this. So the fact is that both these things seem very akin to what Babidi is doing here. Now, in this translation, Babidi does say that I'm going to bring out your latent powers. If I remember correctly, there might have been other translations where they say I'm going to bring out your power past its limits. That's kind of like a idea that we see pretty much every time this is happening. Krillin says that he's already at his limits, and Guru brings his power out even beyond that. We see that the Supreme Kai of the 15 generations ago, the old Kai, is able to bring out Gohan's power past his limits. So does it mean that when he's saying he's going to bring his power out beyond its limits, does this mean that this would be even beyond the power that Gohan really had inside, and through a kind of magical Kaioshin psychic ability, or perhaps the ability that he inherited from the witch when he had fused with her using these Patara earrings? He was able to draw his power even beyond anything that normally would have been the case, which could also tie into the fact that when Gohan transforms, he uses the same kind of method essentially as when he becomes a Super Saiyan, throwing in a little bit of a ki in terms of that as well. And then when he powers up, he doesn't become a Super Saiyan anymore. He doesn't need to transform at all. This replaces any need for transformations. As the old Kai says right here, transforming is in everything. So this one definitely is different in that case from what we see with Guru's power up, and then also what we see here, but it is a similar idea to where Babidi is able to find the deeper power within the fighter and bring out their full potential. So Vegeta's full potential at this point in the series was to be able to match up to Goku as a Super Saiyan 2, and of course be able to do combat with him. However, of course, Goku did have another transformation on top of that allowed him to be even stronger than Vegeta, but assuming that Vegeta had achieved the same form, they would have likely been equivalent because this boost took Vegeta's power to its limits and even further beyond. So how does the Majin boost work in Dragon Ball Z? Well, it seems to work very similar to what we see from Guru and the Elder Supreme Kai, taking someone's latent powers and bringing it forth to the surface and perhaps even beyond its normal limits. With that being said, there also seem to be some other aspects to it, like maybe increased durability, the ability to continue to move forward, despite the fact that you have grave injuries to you, like we saw with Spopovich when he has neck broken and he just fixed it and continued to fight. And of course, with a lot of the fighters, it doesn't seem like they can even sense their power. With Vegeta, it does seem like they were able to sense him during the fight between he and Goku, but it could just be because the fact that he already had normal chi and Super Saiyan chi before that point, as opposed to, you know, the other types of energy that the other fighters may have elicited in the past. That's kind of up in the air. But what do you guys think? Let me know your own thoughts down below. If you like this video, make sure to leave a like, share it out, and if you're new here, consider subscribing so you can stay up to date with all my content, and make sure to stick around, because there's a lot more to come in the future.
And you better subscribe!